Ready?
Good morning, or I guess it's good afternoon. Hello, everyone. We are with the Bureau of Child Care Licensing at the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Thanks, Peggy. I'll introduce your team and then we'll get going here. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Getting Started with DHS licensing session. We have Peggy Krause, Dale Evans, Dawn Butler, and Jennifer Forshino presenting today. And we thank you all for coming and listening. We have an opportunity at the end of the session for questions, but you're welcome to put any questions or comments in the chat as we go along. And so I'll let the DHS team take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dale Evans. I am the office chief for child care. And these are all the ladies that I have brought, every one of them a former teacher, director, etc. And they bring a lot of experience in education and knowledge behind them. As I think Barbara said, we don't have to introduce herself, she already did.
We were missing Flossie, though.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's okay. You could have left me out.
Please introduce yourself. Awesome. Okay. Flossie, do you need to go ahead?
I'm Flossie Wagner. I am one of the compliance officers here at the Bureau of Child Care Licensing.
As you can see, this is our commitment to the children in our community. And as long as I have been with the Department of Health Services, which is a long time, historically and currently, we recognize and support the needs of families and caregivers of children with special needs. The Bureau of Child Care Licensing works with other offices and bureaus in the department whenever rules are recommended that could impact the needs of Arizona's children and families. We partnership with other departments and organizations that are involved with recognizing and supporting the unique demands required to ensure that children with special needs have opportunities to grow and thrive. The rules that we have established for licensed child care providers have been carefully designed to ensure the maximum amount of flexibility for accommodations to ensure that every child is cared for in an environment that supports and enriches growth and development. And just a side note, as individuals and professionals and personally, we have all dealt with the realities of children and adults that are dealing with physical, emotional, and mental and other developmental challenges within our own lives. We are advocates that recognize the importance of a safe and healthy environment that promotes understanding and supportive developmental opportunities. Thank you.
So my name is Peggy Krause. We have heard that it can be difficult to get licensed for anybody, but we really make it an easy, smooth transition and process if you are have a history of getting licensed with the Bureau, or if you have been operating unlicensed or you're a brand new provider. So what we're going to do today is we're going to first talk about how to get licensed with the Bureau of Child Care Licensing. And that way, those school districts can have more licensed care settings for children that may need some inclusion. So the first thing that we wanted to talk to you about was our new portal. We have on the left-hand side of the screen, that is our child care licensing webpage, and that is our homepage. And you are able to access all of our great tools and different links and websites and such. On there, you are able to apply for an initial child care center, a child care group home, and you're able to access the facility licensing portal that you will see on the right-hand side. This portal has been in effect now for a year. Yesterday was our 1-year anniversary of the new system. And so if you have a license with DHS, you likely have a login. If you have not had the opportunity to do so, at the bottom of the login screen, you can see the don't have an account link, and you can sign up there. It is very easy to get that account. And once you do, you are able to start your application for a child care center. So if you currently are not licensed, you can go to the website, access the licensing portal and register, and start that initial center license. On the application page, there are numerous resources to help you with that process. And we even have a provider training guide. It will help walk you through step by step the process of getting licensed and what our requirements are. We try to make this as inclusive as possible for everybody and as easy as possible. We are also available to help answer questions Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 with our compliance officer on duty. They are able to answer any of your basic questions. And once you apply, you're assigned a compliance officer just for your site. And they are able to go through and talk to you about your specifics. So from start to finish, you have that full support from child care licensing. If you are already licensed and you have decided to change your services, or you are going to make a modification to the children's environment, you can contact your assigned compliance officer. And based on what you are changing, you are able to submit a change of service application through that portal. It is very, very quick, very smooth, very seamless. And at least 30 days prior to this date of the change is when you should be submitting that. That gives us time to review the documentation, to come out and do an inspection if we need to. We may require a little bit more information from you, and that gives us plenty of time for your services to start when you hope to start them. An example of a modification inspection is if you are adding diapering or you are adding another classroom, and we would come out and just do an inspection to ensure that all of the rules are met and that the area is in compliance for the children at that time.
All right, I'm Jennifer, and I'm one of the compliance officers here. So I'm just going to kind of go over the process of an inspection. So we would enter, we would introduce ourselves, and we would state to you why we're here, if it's a compliance or complaint or modification or monitoring, just depending what it is. With our system now, everything is digital. So we would have them sign the notice of inspection rights on our iPad, and then we would go to each room first, check the ratio and watch rosters, and then introduce ourselves to all the teachers so they know who we are. After that, then we kind of do the physical plant inspection, which would be like the perimeter, which would be the walls, the doors, all around the rooms, the outside of it, looking at the exit doors, anything that's the perimeter. We looked at all the postings that you're supposed to have posted, such as like capacities, lesson plans, menus, schedules. Then we'll take a look at the bathrooms or if there's diaperings in that room, and toys and materials. So we look at all the stuff that's in the room. Then we will make our way outside. Sometimes we may do the outside first, depending on weather situation. But we'll look at, see if there's shade, we'll look at the fencing to make sure there's no gaps in the fencing, in between, at the bottom, to make sure that they're secured. We look at resilient surface. We have to make sure that there is 6 inches of resilient surface under equipment that has any fall zones. And then we look at everything. We look at any other possible hazards, and we look at all plants that you may have on the outside area. After we've done all that, kind of the indoor of the classrooms, any extra, activity classrooms that are like just for, if you can't go outside, you have like a separate room for that. And then the outdoor, then we do all the paperwork, which is we look at staff files. We will let you know how many staff files we want to look at. We look at the main posting board, which would have like the license. Sometimes you guys post, sometimes you will post the liability insurance. So we look at all that. We look at any medications, EpiPens, inhalers that children have. And then we look at children's blue cards, such as emergency cards, their sign in and outs. And then if there's vehicles, we also do an inspection in the vehicle. We actually have you take us out to the vehicle, turn it on, make sure it's working, the air conditioning, the heater, and we make sure you have all that paperwork for vehicles as well. And then after we have done and completed all that, we have what's called an exit interview, which we go over all the possible deficiencies. And you guys can ask any questions. You can, that's your time to kind of go over and go, oh, wait, no, I have that. If it's paperwork missing. So that's your time for us to have that conversation with you. Did I miss it? I'll make sure.
All right. My name is Dawn Butler, and today we're going to be talking about the rules for special needs children. Everyone in this room is affected by somebody with special needs, so this is near and dear to our hearts. And we have a section in our rules that speaks just specifically to special needs, and that is R95507. So up here on the slide, we have highlighted some of the more common ones that we will discuss today. And so the first one, R95507A, is obtaining an individualized plan from the parents prior to that child starting. That way we can review it, adopt it, and implement it in the program. You want to, they don't already have an individualized plan and the parent has identified that child with special needs, or you guys have identified that child with special needs, then that's when you would do the individualized plan. And that is on our website. So you can download that in the forms section. And this is just a really good collaboration between the provider, the parent, sometimes the student themselves, depending on the age, most likely not if they're younger, and then getting also the input from the healthcare provider. And that's really important that we have all the input from all of those different sections of the child's life to help them be successful with the program. So the next one on here is R95507B. And this speaks to the licensee will be able to determine which area is developmentally appropriate for that child and which age group they will be in. You can also get some information too. Say you have a child that's 17 months and is not quite ready to be in the 1-year-old room because they're not walking because of the special needs. In this section, it defines children with special needs that are 18 years of age or older and does not walk. They can be placed in the infant room. Again, just having that individualized plan to back that up, for that child to make sure that they're in the right developmentally appropriate age group. The next one is R95507C, and this is that the licensee will accommodate special needs children with any apparatus that they need. An example would be a feeding tube, and in our rules under that section, it gives information that you would need to be able to use that adaptive device. And that's not the only adaptive device that you can use. There's many other devices out there for children. That's just an example of one. The next rule, R95507D, this speaks to making sure that the licensee has developmentally appropriate toys and materials and equipment for the children. So again, we make sure this is pretty broad. We want to include anything that the special needs child would need to be successful in the program. And so, you know, this rule speaks to having those materials and supplies available for those children. The next rules down are R95507E and then R95507F. And this speaks to accommodating children with wheelchairs. And then if you're going to transport a child in a vehicle with a wheelchair, it gives you some specifics that you'll want to read through on making sure that the wheelchair is, you know, stable in the vehicle, how to place the child, and just goes over all of those specifications just to help you and guide you into how to properly transport that child. The next rule is R95507G. And this is if you need to make any changes for a child with special needs, say adding a diaper changer, you can do that, and especially if you need to add one for privacy of, you know, the child that is special needs. And sometimes, you know, that needs to happen because of the age of the child. So you would just, you know, submit in writing at least 30 days in advance that you want to make this modification. And like, you know, Jennifer spoke earlier about those modifications. We come out, we take a look at the area you want to modify and then do the approval process for that. So we can make accommodations based on the special needs of the children. All right, moving on to the next slide. This goes over other rules and regulations in reference to special needs. And not only in that section for special needs, we have other areas that go over specific rules to help make it clearer to meet the needs of the children. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the definitions. And this definition section is great for you to be able to refer back to, especially with the verbiage in the rules section, or just to get a little bit more clarity on what, say, special needs means. And so in our definition, a child with special needs means a child with a healthcare provider's diagnosis and a record of physical or mental condition that substantially limits the child in providing self-care or performing manual tasks or other major life functions such as walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, or learning. And then a child with a developmental disability is defined in there also, and that's under the next section of definitions of 15761. And this means that a child who is at least 3 years but under 22 years of age who has been evaluated pursuant to section 15766 and found to have at least one of the following disabilities, and who because of the disability needs special education and related services. So this can include anyone with autism, developmental delay, emotional disabilities, maybe hearing impairment, any other health impairments that the child might have, specific learning disabilities, mild, moderate, or severe intellectual disabilities, disabilities with severe sensory impairment, if a child has orthopedic impairment, any delays or brain trauma or visual impairment. So as you can see, it's not, this list has a lot of areas to include children, and we've listed most of them, but there could be other things also that are included in this. And then going to the next one for definitions. A child with special needs has a diagnosis from a provider or a record of a physical or mental condition that substantially limits the child in providing self-care, performing manual tasks, or other major life functions. So again, referring back to all of these definitions is going to be really helpful to you if you're on the fence about exactly what that means. And we refer back to the definitions a lot too when we're looking at a rule and, you know, trying to decide, okay, what does this rule really speak to? Let's go to the definitions and start defining the words within this rule to figure it out. So please use those if you need them. The next rule on here, R95208D, this is changes affecting a license if requiring a diaper changing area outside of an infant room or an indoor activity area to allow for privacy for diapering an enrolled child. You do need to submit for a written request for the approval of this, but say you needed to change a special needs child in a bathroom for privacy reasons. We would accommodate that if you submitted your modification, we came out, we reviewed the area, we made sure that it would accommodate the needs of that special needs child, and then you could, once approved, use that area. So again, it's just getting the approval process first. We really don't stand in the way of trying to work with special needs children. We try to go above and beyond, to help you guys out so you can include these children in their program because we feel the benefit of it. The next one is R95301, and this is under the general licensing responsibilities. And this speaks to the licensee shall provide for enrolled children's participation in each fire and emergency evacuation drill according to the enrolled child's individualized plan. So if there are accommodations that we need to make, say that a child cannot handle the noise level of the fire drill, we can make accommodations for that. We do not want to cause more stress on the child or upset the child if there's a way to make those accommodations. So again, either going to the rules to see what you need to do or reaching out to your compliance officer for guidelines and clarification on this is a useful tool for you. The next one we'll talk about is training requirements, and this is R95403B2. And this speaks to having availability of community resources and services available to parents with children with special needs, and then also the training requirements. Your teachers have to have 18 hours or more of actual training every 12 hours. So it's just ensuring that they get those trainings, and you can have those trainings be specific too to some special needs trainings, and there's a lot of good materials and supplies out there. CCNI is a great training tool. We could also steer you in the direction of some great trainers. So again, just reaching out if you don't have those availability of resources, we can help you find those resources. The next one is R95509C1, and this speaks to the general food service and handling standards. And this talks about like special needs children who can't wash their hands on their own, and having those the teacher assistants helping them with that. We understand that they're going to need that help and guidance, and this rule speaks to that, allowing you to make those modifications to help that special needs child. And then the next one is R95501A1, and this is just under the general health and equipment and safety standards. And this speaks to emotional support of animals are considered for ADA purposes if a special needs child needs that. We don't allow a trampoline for typical children, but if a trampoline is part of the child's individualized plan, then we would allow that device for that child. So again, it's just allowing more for the special needs children to help them to be successful. And then the last one is, standards for diaper changing. And we spoke a little bit about this earlier. We are willing to make accommodations to help you diaper children with special needs if the regular way doesn't work with the diaper changer. Again, if we need to have that diaper changer in the bathroom just for special needs, or come up with another way so that you can accommodate those toileting needs for those children, we're going to work with you to help you do that, work through that with you. So, and that's all that we've got on the rules.
Now, we've given you a lot to think about, and we've given you a lot of information. So as you process that and take a few moments to jot down your questions, because we are going to have a question and answer session. We'd like you to consider some of the frequent questions and topics and concerns that have come to us. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of those, and hopefully that will help you to fine tune the questions you have for us today. Many of the topics that we receive questions about in regards to providing care for children with a variety of needed accommodations revolve around these particular areas. First of all, as you are all aware, it is important to be familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires that reasonable accommodations are made to provide services to any individual meeting their criteria. Accommodation is going to be as individual as the person requiring it. So clear and consistent communication is going to ensure that a very successful experience for everyone involved. The children, the families, the teachers, everyone who is involved in this process. When it comes to staffing, we're very aware of your concerns there. Not only who is available, but also what their training and skills are is something that you all have concerns for, and those are valid. And it is a valid component of your evaluation for how you're going to accommodate any child needing help. It is important that individualized plans are developed in writing with all the participating parties. As Dawn mentioned earlier, our rules refer to that specifically because you want to make sure that you're getting all the information that you need regarding that child's care. And it is important that those plans are updated on a regular basis. That is going to help you be more prepared to be able to get whatever extra training you need or provide any extra help as the child grows and develops in your program. Make sure that those changing needs are identified very specifically, and make sure that you and the parents both understand how you are addressing those and how make sure that you are addressing it appropriately. Now, if you have any concerns, Dawn already did a wonderful job of going over some of the concerns that come up with type 3. But if you have any more questions regarding that, always call, talk with your compliance officer. If you don't have one assigned yet, ask for the compliance officer of the day. We are here to provide information because we want you to be successful. We want your staff to be successful. And we want everyone to feel like they have a safe place to learn and grow.
All right. Looks like you have a question. I have some questions that have come up through the chat for you. So I have kind of gathered them all together, and I don't know how, if you want me to share my screen, that the ones that I've kind of pulled together from that have come out of the chat, would that be helpful today so you could kind of read them first?
Sure, that's great.
That's great, thank you.
All righty, let me share my screen here.
Do you want me to stop sharing or?
Oh, I can, that's okay. And we are here. So here are the questions that came up today. The first one is, for public preschool programs, do we need to use the form you discussed for R95507A, or can we use the IEP that will be in place?
Use the IEP as long as we have accessibility to verify what the accommodations are and that staff is if they're doing diapering, are they doing it appropriately? And is it in accordance to the IEP?
Are there I mean, this kind of comes from, this is just a question that popped up for me. Are there advantages to using the family, that individualized plan that you mentioned that you have available in addition to the IEP? Are there things that you see that would be benefits to schools, or is the IEP sufficient in most cases from your experience?
The IEP is more designed for an educational purpose, so you can use that, but our individualized plan is more for childcare setting. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of their medical emergency instructions, toileting and personal hygiene, specific care services that are going to be required just for that facility, medical equipment, nutrition and feeding. So we're really getting into more of the early education and trying to hone in on those skills, where the IEP is more for the educational setting, classroom. So you can use both, but for our purposes, I would recommend just the regular IP to use.
The other thing too with the IEP, that is a lot of information that a teacher then would have to house or would always have to be accessible if we're doing our inspection.
So I invite you to look at the questions and, take them as you wish. And there are a couple others that have come into the chat as well that we can address after you've talked through any of these that you can.
Well, we can address the second one. What kinds of plans determine that an individualized plan is warranted? Any situation that may arise for a child that is outside of the typical needs, like a child who is 19 months old and is still not walking. As Dawn had mentioned, our definition of an infant is up through 18 months old and not walking. But once that child is past 18 months, that we need to start evaluating what's best for the child. Is it best for that child to stay in that infant room, or is it going to be better developmentally and emotionally for that child to move on to the ones room? We want to look at the social emotional part of it, as well as the health and safety. We don't want this child, who is likely larger than the other children, hurting any of the younger ones, but we also don't want them to go to another room if they themselves will be injured. So working together with the parents and a healthcare provider to determine which space would be best is an example of that. With diapering, we have, as Dawn had also mentioned, we require, if a child is diapered, that there be a diaper changing area in the room, but we may have a 4-year-old that, due to a special need, they are still using pull-ups or diapers, and that's not developmentally appropriate for that child to be in the twos room, which is the oldest room that might have a diaper changing area. So looking at and coming up with that game plan between the facility, the parents, and the healthcare provider, what's the best choice for this 4-year-old child? Is it diapering in the restroom? Is it having a private space? So things like that are the most typical ones. But it could deal with feeding plans or, just anything. If a child is more fragile, has more fragile issues, and they may have to avoid certain areas on the playground, that could also be in an individualized plan. So we're looking at that collaboration between parent, facility, and healthcare provider to do what's best for that child. You guys have anything else to add to that one?
I think that was good.
The only other thing, I was gonna just give an example. I know one of the facilities had a child who was very sensitive to noise, and they were able to create a safe space in a corner of the room with activities for the child. And then they started discussions with the parents. And since then, the child has been diagnosed on the lower levels of autism, and the hearing piece was the big item that they targeted. And so the facility in their own way had already picked up on it, had the discussion with the parents, and the parents went and had it assessed, and it really worked out as a full circle to benefit the child.
The next question down, also does a plan have to be in place for the DHS form to be used, i.e. for toileting? If you have a child with special needs and they're identified as that, then yes, to make accommodations, we do have to have the form filled out. For typicals, they all should be, if they're in diapers or pull-ups, they need to be in a room that accommodates diaper changing in their activity area. But if you have a child that needs to have a special modification or done something differently, then we do need to have that form to back up to make those accommodations.
So this really speaks to the idea that disability, a child may have experienced some trauma or something and may not be toilet trained yet, and needs to have a plan in place. The child doesn't have to have an IEP, is that right?
That is correct.
There's a broad definition of disability, and that if we consider what those children's needs are, then we can, in most cases, make accommodations and enable them to participate in an appropriate program for them.
Keep in mind that the purpose for these documents, for these forms, is to ensure that the communication is happening and is being documented between the caregivers and the family, so that everyone is on the same page and understands what best will help this child to thrive. So that is the purpose of the documentation.
And also to get the healthcare provider involved too, just to make sure that everybody is on the same place and we're all looking at the growth and development of this child, and we're doing what we need to do to help this child succeed.
Great, thank you.
To acknowledge number 4, I think we've explained most of that, but pull-ups are considered part of diapering. So if a child is in need of pull-ups and has a need for an individualized plan in order to get the care they need for that toileting, then yes, that individualized plan would need to be filled out. And these individualized plans, to address number 5, this is for all children in licensed care.
Yeah, as soon as you recognize that there is something that child might need special help with, or accommodations, or if the parent brings it to your attention, or all of a sudden the child starts to come to school on the bus in the afternoon, like all of those are good indications that, hey, let's sit down with a parent, let's figure out what's going on, and let's see what we can do to help this child thrive.
And our licensing and our rules for special needs, children apply from birth all the way to school age. It's all encompassing. And we've talked about this a little bit with you, Susie. The reason that a lot of the rules are very general is because it was designed that way, so we could meet all accommodations for all ages.
If people are interested in getting your PowerPoint, if you can send that. And then I had a second page of questions that just came through, And are students allowed to bring water bottles?
Yes.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
We just recommend they label their water bottles with first and last name, because there can be 2 or 3 Johnnies in a classroom or whatever. So yes, you can bring water bottles and just have the water bottle labeled with the child's first and last name.
Can anybody apply for licensing, or is this just for school districts?
That is for
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody can apply.
Anyone and everyone can apply, and right now
It's a
it costs $1.
Yes.
Right, right. This is amazing.
The licensing fee is $1.
Dollar.
Not going to say that the program is, the licensing fee is $1.
Yes.
Let's see, is there a certain time frame that newly licensed childcare centers or group homes need to have children enrolled and attending the program once the license is issued?
No, I mean, I don't know. Not
No.
really. I mean, you could get licensed, and I mean, I had one that got licensed and not till about 6 months later did they officially start. So it's kind of whenever you get children enrolled.
We understand it takes time to build your program.
Mhm. Great.
And just to add a disclaimer, our department does not have a time frame. If they are working with a grant requirement, they would need to go to that organization and ask them. But our department does not have a time frame on that.
And finally, how does having a special needs child in, say, a younger classroom affect the ratio requirements? Does the child's chronological age count, or the developmental age?
It is based off of the chronological age, the youngest child in that group. So say you have a group of children ages 2 and 3 years old, we're going to look at the ratio for the 2-year-old age.
Okay.
But you, as a provider, you might want to have additional help in that classroom, depending on what those children's needs are. But we just require you to follow the regular ratios.
And in terms, oh, let's see, I think that's it. I think that's all of the questions that have come through the chat. Is there anything else that's popping up for anybody that's here in this group that they would like to unmute, or any comments? Or I do want to thank the this team from Department of Health Services for coming and sharing their presentation today and helping us to better understand and have common understandings of some of the, you know, how to interpret and how to abide by and follow the regulations, and how they're really intended to be helpful to make communication more, you know, amongst families and providers, and more approachable and visible, clear. So are there any other questions that have come through that you guys can think of? We have about 10 or 15 more minutes for our session. Or licensing team, is there anything else that you'd like to add based on what you're hearing?
Suzanne, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Suzanne, maybe if there's anybody in this group that have felt like they've had constraints trying to include special needs, we could talk about that. And then Dale had something to add too.
On our last page, you can see our number, and not only are we the regulator, but we are also very much there for providers, whether it's a corporation or a small group home or a public school. They all get treated the same. And by that, I mean technical assistance. If you're having problems with the portal, call us. We will walk you through it. And once you've received your CDC, your number with us, then you will be assigned a compliance officer. Contact that compliance officer. If your compliance officer isn't there, contact the compliance officer of the day, and they will be more than happy to give you whatever technical assistance that you need. And then if they're not able to help you, any of the team leaders that you met today can help you, and also Jennifer and Flossie. And if you can't reach all of those people, then please feel free to contact me, because all of us are very invested in having the best for our special children across the board, whatever age they are. And it's very important to us. And we've always done this, but we've never really campaigned like this about what we're doing. It's always under the radar. But this is what we've been doing for the last 30 years that I've been here. We will continue to do it. And, you know, if you have ways that we can improve that, we are always open to ideas and discussions.
We did get a couple more questions in the chat. Are there any plans or discussions to require special education preschool programs to be licensed?
There are no plans to require a program that is, you know, fully developmental preschool classroom. We do not. We do have many that are licensed, whether they have typicals or no typicals. But if they do have more than 4 typicals at one time, then they are required to get licensed. But other than that, we do not have any plans in the foreseeable future for that.
Here's one on the other end of the spectrum. Do we need to store extra clothes, diapers, and wipes in containers with lids labeled with students' first and last name? Sounds like a quiz.
Personal products for that are based off of the child's needs. If they are, you know, the child's diaper wipes or creams or anything like that, those are required to be labeled individually in case they do get separated from that larger container. But a lot of times people will label them individually and stick them in a container with the name as well. You know, there's no harm in over labeling, but you know, any personal product like wipes or creams or medications or anything like that are required to be labeled. And if it is a medicated item, such as a prescription diaper cream like nystatin, those are considered medications. And so they need to be treated as such and follow the medication rule.
Righty.
This person, go ahead. Go ahead.
This person says, I don't have much of a voice thanks to the weather and germs, but I do appreciate the clarity about individualized plans and how to support developing them. I support several childcare centers, and there seems to be confusion about the requirements for what is needed to create one. And then this other question is group home overnight care or in-home care?
Group home is in-home care. That's for our homes, we call them group homes.
And I don't see any other questions in here for right now.
I did want to mention one other thing that people may want to look at, and Flossie, feel free to jump in. But we also have a program called DEEP. It's Disaster Emergency Evacuation Plans. And in these modules, we go into how to prepare your plan for any emergency, and that is very inclusive of all ages, of all needs. And in our trainings, we've even, you know, talked to staff about make sure you have the teacher that's going to be the calmest, knows her infants, knows which ones need special bottles and special equipment, etc. So we've kind of gone full circle with trying to accommodate all children, but be very inclusive of special needs. And it's called DEEP. And how many modules are there, Flossie?
There are 6 small modules. It's broken up into pieces. And that way you can go through each one. They're fairly short. You're going to spend more time preparing, doing the things that you need to do than you are actually going to be doing the module. The manual is also available if you're having difficulties getting the module to work. You do have to download it to your computer before you open it up. But the manual is also online. We've been told by more than one director how much they really have appreciated it. In fact, I had one conversation with one director that said that she actually ended up using the resources suggested for preparing her disaster plan just for her daily organization. It actually helped her get her classrooms and her teachers organized better. And that was a fun conversation to have with her, that she found it was useful across the board. So those resources are available on our website. If you go to the emergency section, it's all there. And if you're having trouble finding it, you call us and you ask, and we'll tell you where to go to get it. It's a great resource.
Well, thank you so much, Dale, Peggy, Dawn, Jennifer, and I know there's someone here whose name I'm missing on my list because I can match.
Flossie.
Flossie. All right, great. So thank you so much for today. I think that is our last question. Are there any other comments from our participants about the session? Or remember that we have coming up next our visit our vendors and our exhibitors. They're going to be holding sessions so that you can go and visit with them. And please fill out a session commentary at the end. And we're getting lots of thank yous and appreciate your information. So thank you so much, all of you, this great team, for coming today and really helping us. And we hope there'll be many more
Susie,
opportunities.
Susie, I need to let you know this is how important you all are and the children that we're discussing today. But we pretty much have left the Bureau without any supervisors because we're all here today.
They are all unsupervised right now.
No one's answering the phone. Well, we better let you get.
It's very important. So thank you for allowing us to participate.
We so appreciate it. We know your time is valuable, and we will have this presentation, if you don't mind, that people will be able to access this for many months to come until I think it's like till June. And so we'll remember to kind of market it and let other people know that this was a great session, that they can learn lots of important information from you all. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.